Okay, guys, well, we're going to start standing. So we're going to stand up nice and tall. Since we're back in the garage today for a little bit of a change, we can do more standing, more floor work here. So we're going to reach all the way up overhead, stretch those arms nice and long, tuck the tailbone under, and we're going to curl and roll down, segment by segment, piece by piece, rolling down to the floor. And we'll hang here for a moment, get that nice stretch through the back of the leg. Shoulders glide back and down. And then we're going to soften the knees, bend the knees. So that way, as we go for our restack and we curl and roll back up, we can help that pelvic tuck, tucking the tailbone. So we can scoop and curl, kind of decompress the sacrum, the low back a little bit more by adding that knee bend at the bottom. And we'll straighten the legs again, reaching up nice and long overhead. And then curl and roll down. Trying to keep that even weight throughout the foot. So as you roll towards the floor, you're not swaying from heels to toes. Hanging there at the bottom. Allow the head to drop towards the floor as the shoulders pull back and down. Get that extra stretch through the vertebrae by letting the head hang. And then again, we'll bend the knees, soften the knees just a little bit. Retract those shoulders back and down. And then exhale to tuck the tail as you scoop and curl. Restacking the spine, one piece, one vertebra at a time. Reaching all the way up. And forward fold. Finding that curl of the spine. Rolling through the movement piece by piece. Feel that weight and that balance at the ankle bone, at the ankle joint, in the heel. And just hang here. Let the head drop. And we're going to walk our hands over to the left to get that deeper stretch to the back of the left leg. And we'll walk our hands around and over to the right. Again, for that deeper stretch in the back of that right leg. Coming back to center. Soften the knees, draw those shoulders back, lengthen through the neck, and then tailbone tucks, and we curl and restack, beginning to straighten the legs. Coming all the way up, stretching long towards the ceiling with the ribs knitted in, navel to spine, tailbone slightly tucked so the front of the hips are open. Bring our arms down by our side. We're going to step forward with that right foot. I'm in a split stance. My back left heel is down, so I'm going to try to maintain that calf stretch and that connection of my left heel to the floor. Arms are going to reach out in front. I'm going to keep a flat back position and neutral spine, and I'm going to hinge. Reaching forward. Trying to maintain that neutral spine, hinging at the hip as I reach forward. And then restack. Shoulders over hips. Shoulders down as ribs and abs draw in. And then forward hinge at the hip. Taking that deeper stretch to the back of the left leg, especially through that calf muscle. And sliding back. Giving that muscle a bit of a break, I'm going to bend that back left knee forward, coming up to that high heel, maintaining that balance, and then straightening that back leg, driving the heel for the floor for the stretch. Knee bends forward, finding that nice control, that balance through the upper body. and straightening that left leg, driving the heel down, and hinge and reach forward. Chin to chest, forward fold, rolling forward out over that front right leg. Look back, see if you need to straighten your left leg, your left foot. Sometimes we tend to turn the heel in, so we'll need to realign that back leg. And right knee bends, we'll lift that left heel, keeping that left leg nice and straight. Back the leg up if you need to. And we're going to stretch through the front of the hips. You could do this from a straighter leg position, also using a wall if you don't want to come down towards the floor. And we'll pivot back, straightening the front right leg. The heel can stay lifted in the back. And we'll bend that right knee again, coming forward for that stretch. You can even drop that left knee for the floor for that deeper stretch through the front of the hips and into that left quad, the muscle right up the front of that left leg. One more breath. And we'll lift up, finding that lunge position, hinging back to straighten that right leg, and we'll curl and roll back up. Stepping forward, left foot forward, right leg back, and we're going to keep a more narrow stance than what we just finished on, so we can anchor that right heel against the floor. Stretching out that right calf. Nice tall posture position through the back and spine. Arms reach forward, and we're going to hinge at the hip, reaching long, and slow to reset. Back to that tall position. Now start to think about which side may have felt tighter. They may feel very even to you as far as that tension in the stretch, or you may have one side that feels much tighter than the other. So I'm going to hold my position here, and right knee is going to bend, lifting that right heel up, and then slow to press the heel down, straightening that back right leg. Knee bends again, working on that balance. And we'll hinge. Hinging forward, reaching long out over that front left leg. We'll bring chin to chest. And we'll forward roll down towards the mat. Reaching and stretching nice and long. And left knee will bend. I'm going to hold the heel down on the right side for just a moment, just to deepen that stretch through the calf. And then I'm going to step the foot back just a little bit, come up off that right heel so I can work into the stretch, front of the right hip and the front of the right thigh. And again, you can do this in a more standing position with your hands in front of you on a wall. And hinging back for that nice deep stretch. Getting an even deeper stretch along the back of that front left leg. And we'll come forward again, bending that left knee. And you can even drop the right knee to the mat. to the floor for that deeper stretch through the front of the hip and thigh. Resetting that straight back right leg, straightening the left, and we'll curl and restack. Stepping back with that left foot, we'll come to the back end of our mat where we started, and we're going to work a little bit on our inchworm for that deep stretch through the back of the legs, reaching up long overhead. We curl down. Feel free to bend your knees if you need to get your hands to the mat, and keeping as little sway through the hips as you can, we're going to walk out into more of a plank position. So we'll find that plank position, spine is long, heels are reaching for the floor behind us, our abdominals, our ribs are knitted up and in, and then hinging up into more of a downward dog position. Straight legs, feet and legs walk forward towards the hands, driving the heel down into the floor as they walk in. Holding here. Bending the knees. Sitting back onto the heels. Into that chair position. Nice flat back, proud chest. Pushing your feet and your legs towards the floor, strong through the quads. And we'll stand up straight. Stepping back towards the back of the mat, we'll go into another rep. Again, we're going to curl and roll down. Add as much knee bend as you need to place your hands on the mat. Feel that stretch through the back of the legs. And with control, we walk forward, trying not to swish the hips from side to side. As little movement through the torso as you can. Holding that plank position. Pushing away from the floor. Long through the back and the spine. And then up into that downward dog position. And we'll walk our feet forward, nice and slow, piece by piece. Trying not to swish. Keeping our feet flat. Holding that stretch. And we'll bend the knees. Settle into the ankles. Settle into the heels. Feel the weight balance from ball of the foot through the heels. And we'll come to that chair position. Breathing into that hold. 2 more breaths. Standing tall, and we'll step back for one last one. Find your feet, your legs stacked right under the hips, and we'll reach up. Arms come forward as we fold at the mid-ribs, bringing chin to chest, and we'll curl and roll down. Hanging here for a moment, get that nice stretch to the back of the legs. Core is active as you begin to walk towards your plank position. Finding that stability in the arms and the shoulders, in your core. Set yourself into your plank for a few breaths. Hips reach high. as you slide the shoulders down and back, reaching the heels towards the floor. And then very slowly walking the feet forward. Straight legs as you walk in. Find that parallel foot position. Ground and connect into the ankle joint and feel even pressure from heel to toe, bending the knees forward and lifting the upper body. Nice flat back, proud chest. Into that hold. Three more breaths. And standing tall. All right, let's come down to our mat. And we're going to work into a little bit of our roll-ups. And we're going to start with a bent knee and both feet flat to the mat. Now you can do this without the spinal articulation. You can do it with a flat back, long spine, if you don't want to add any flexion to the back by just hinging back from the hip. Arms are going to come out in front. I'm going to work through the articulation. Exhale, tilt the hips back. I sink into my C curve without my shoulders shifting back just yet. So I can feel that stretch through the low back, through the back of the hips. And then I begin to move back, drawing the abdominals in, keeping the collarbone spreading wide, curling back about halfway. I pause for a breath, and then fold and curl, curling back up, sitting up nice and tall and long. I'm going to roll back a little bit more on this next one. Try to imprint my low back against the mat. Coming just to about the base of the shoulder blade. And then on that next exhale, fold and curl. And sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. Right leg is going to straighten out along the mat, keeping the left knee bent, and working that curl. Right leg will move with you. It'll slide along your mat. You may be able to curl all the way back, bringing the arms overhead without the back lifting, the rib cage flaring. Arms glide forward. Head, neck, chest lifts. And on that next exhale, we curl and roll. Shoulders over hips. We're sitting up nice and tall and long. One more with this right leg straight. And remember, you can eliminate all of the articulation, working just a hinge at the hip, moving about half the distance as you would if you were curling through the spine. But you find that movement, that range of motion that works best for you. Changing sides, right knee is bent, left leg is straight. Starting off sitting long up out of the sit bones and tailbone, and then curling into that C curve and beginning to articulate back. segment by segment, piece by piece. Last one. We'll extend and straighten both legs, and we'll flex our feet. We'll bring them mat width apart so we can work through our forward stretch. And again, you can do this by hinging at the hip to reach forward, or even with your hands behind you to help with a little bit of extension. If you don't want to flex the back or curl forward, still getting that nice hamstring stretch, that length of the spine. For the articulation, arms will start here in front. We'll drop chin towards our chest and collarbone, fold at the mid-ribs, and begin to curl and roll forward, reaching out over the thighs, hands reach through between the feet, trying to keep the neck nice and long. I'm going to reach for my feet, grab my toes, and try to get a little bit deeper into that calf stretch. And as I pull, I slide the shoulders down, feel like my spine and my head are drawn forward towards my feet for that extra length, that extra stretch. Releasing, trying to hold that forward stretch, and then restack. Piece by piece, segment by segment, sitting up nice and tall, over the sit bones. Fingers are going to interlace. I'm going to bring my hands to the back of my head, and inhale, hinge up and over to the right, and exhale back to center. Lengthen and stretch up and over to the left, and back to center. Arms come around to the front. We'll move chin to chest, forward fold at the mid-ribs, curl and roll, reaching forward, lengthening and pressing the legs straighter than before. Reach for your legs, your feet, however far you can reach with your hands, and then pull and stretch longer forward. If you're not able to grab your toes, work on that dorsiflexion by drawing the top of the foot back towards the shin and the knee. Really find that lengthening. When your hands come off your legs or feet, try to hold that length and then slow to restack. Piece by piece. Sitting taller and longer than before, and fingers interlace. Coming back behind the head, sitting nice and tall. We inhale, hinge over to the right, keeping that left hip down. And exhale back to center. Reach up and over to the left. Right hip stays down. And back to center. Last one, last forward reach. Seat the shoulders, down the ribs, down the back. And we bring chin to chest. Forward roll. Curling and reaching forward between the legs. Stretching and reaching farther than before. Hands release. Sliding those shoulders down, we restack. Feel as if there's a string pulling the crown of the head, your spine tall towards the ceiling. And then fingers interlace back behind the head. Head rests back in your hands. And we inhale up and over to the right. And exhale back. Reach and lengthen and over to the left. And back to center. We'll bring our legs together. Point those toes. Arms will come back to the front, curling back and down to the mat. And we'll bend our knees, placing our feet flat. Find that nice neutral spine, that little gap between the low back and the mat. Heels are in line with your sit bones. We'll work through our strict shoulder bridge first, pulling the ribs in, making sure that this bottom section of ribs are not elevated up. If they're elevated up, I'm arched too far back onto my shoulder, and I'm not engaging those upper segments of abdominal muscles. I need to fold and pull down and in. Even if it feels like you're slouching or the shoulders are rolling in a little bit, really get the ribs down. And on our exhale, we'll engage our glutes and our abdominals. We'll push our knees forward. Hips will lift up and through. Pausing for a breath or two at the top. And then slow to bring the hips down. Keeping the shoulders connected down, so as you lift and lower the hips, there's no movement in the upper body. We'll bring our knees to tabletop. Arms will come out to a slight T. You could work in a lower position to ensure that you're not shrugging the shoulders. And we're going to work into our spine twist. On the inhale, we're going to take the legs to the right, keeping that left shoulder down. Start with small movements. Try not to move too fast, too far your first few repetitions so you can warm up the back. If you don't want to twist, work into your single leg extensions forward to engage and activate those obliques on the sides of the abdominals. Inhale as you extend the leg forward or as you twist to the side, and then exhale to draw back to center. The rotation for our spine twist here is coming from the mid-ribs. It's not coming from the low back. The low back is in neutral and it's moving with the hips and the legs to the side. Finding that rotation through the mid-ribs just below the shoulder blades. One more, right and left. Coming back to center, we'll separate the knees, moving right into leg changes. Inhale, right foot taps to the mat, and we exhale to change. Trying to alternate simultaneously. You can break this down and slow it down and work just one leg at a time, and also scale the movement. You don't have to tap the floor or the mat with your foot. One more each side. And coming into tabletop, we'll draw the knees towards the chest. Let the low back decompress and flatten against the floor. Bring the knees out to tabletop. We'll bring our hands to the side of the knees. You can add a chest lift or leave it out. I'm going to fold and lift at the mid-ribs, finding that alignment from ribs to hips, left to right, into our single leg stretch. Right leg reaches forward as hands transfer to that left knee, and slow to switch and change. No rotation through the upper body. Hands are just moving from side to side as you reach the leg long and strong, forward out over that mat. One more each side. And we'll draw the knees in towards the chest, rounding forward just a little bit. Curl to roll back. Head looks out left over that left shoulder to stretch through the side of the right neck, right side of the neck, and along the top of the right shoulder. And then we rotate over towards the right ear, looking out over that right shoulder. Left side of the neck is stretching along the top of the shoulder. And back to center. Into our double leg stretch, legs to tabletop. You can again do this with or without the chest lift. Folding in at the mid-ribs. I'm going to start with a higher movement of my arms and legs, more up towards the ceiling, and then slowly start to move them away from the center line to make it harder. On my inhale, arms and legs reach up, and exhale back. And each time moving away a little bit more. Keep the chest lifted, especially as the arms go back. Try not to let your shoulders, your head fall back for the mat and the floor as the arms travel overhead. Inhale to open and reach. Last 3. Curl and roll back. Left leg stretches out along the floor as we draw that right knee towards the chest. And we'll switch. Into a little bit of our figure 4 stretch. Left foot down. Right leg will come to the top of the left, and we'll bring that knee to tabletop to stretch through the back of the right hip. And we'll switch. Starting with right foot down. Lower left leg across the top of the thigh on the right side. Right leg to tabletop. And we'll unwind. So we're going to turn onto our left side for a stretch. going to be a sideline tabletop position. You could add a block or a pillow between the knees to keep the spacing and the alignment of the hip, of the leg from the hip. Sometimes it's a little bit more comfortable to have a pad between or a pillow between the knees. You could also use a foam roller as well to help bring that more parallel position. Left hand's going to be out, palm up, and I'm going to stack shoulder over shoulder, hip over hip. And my goal is to not allow my legs and my hip and my low back to really move. I want, again, this rotation to come through the mid-ribs. Right arm is going to reach up. And I'm going to start to rotate back. And I don't want to push it too far to begin with. So a nice, slow, smooth movement. Not too big, because I want to ensure that the alignment of my knees stays constant, especially the farther back my right shoulder, my right arm moves back and down for the floor behind me. There's this nice oppositional work of my upper body rotating back and down as my lower body kind of shifting forward a little bit, especially this right leg, to ensure that I don't take that rotation into the low back. Going for one more. And again, there's really no need to push too much into this. We're going to let gravity and the weight of your body help and assist with the stretch. And then we're going to come up. We'll do a little bit of our side planks on this side. I'm going to set up on my forearm of the left, still stacked with the feet and the knees. Bringing my right arm straight up towards the ceiling. On the exhale, the hips lift up, they press forward and through. So I'm fully open through the torso, and I've got this nice line, ear, shoulder, hip to knee. Actively engaging my glutes, squeezing through the inner thighs, knitting the rib cage in, nice and tight. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow to lower. And we'll spin and we'll flip to the other side for that stretch. So again, I'm setting up that sideline tabletop position. Add the pillow, the block, the roller between the knees if you'd like. Laying on my right side. Right arm is out in line with the shoulder. Legs and hips are stacked, as well as shoulders and arms to start with. And again, I slowly start to open and rotate, not pushing too much into that first repetition. And one more, keeping that forward pressure of that top leg, pushing forward and down as the left side rotates back. And then we'll come up onto that left side, or excuse me, my right side here, apologies. Onto that forearm of the right arm, finding that alignment. Take your time for your setup. Elbows stacked right underneath the shoulder, Left arm's going to reach up for the ceiling, and then on that exhale, hips lift up and through. Nice and long through the spine. Ribs are knitted in. Drawing navel to spine. Squeeze through glutes and inner thighs. Few more breaths. And slow to lower down. Coming on to the knees. Heels together, knees pull apart, arms reach out in front, and we're going to sit back towards the heels to stretch. One more breath. And we're going to curl up and come to quadruped. Hand and wrist right underneath the shoulder. The knees are stacked underneath the hips. Nice straight lines from the arms and the legs going vertical and flat through the back. We're going to work through our cat stretch. So on the exhale, tailbone is going to tuck, rounding just through the hips and the low back. Drawing the abdominals in. And inhale to articulate back to that neutral lumbar position. And lifting the chest without letting the ribs drop towards the floor. Finding that thoracic extension as you draw the abs in. Reset the upper body. And then back into that tuck, that tailbone tuck on the exhale, just rounding through the lower half. Upper back, shoulders are flat and strong. We return to neutral. Chest lifts, upper back is into its extension. And back to neutral. Last one. These are small movements, especially when the upper back moves into its extension. We'll probably get a little bit more movement out of the hips and the low back. We return to neutral. And last one here. Shoulders pull back and down. The chest is peeling up and lifting. And back to neutral. Arms walk out in front, and we sit back to the heels. Reaching and stretching, nice and long. And on that next exhale, we'll curl and roll back up to our tall kneeling position. Curling and restacking, segment by segment, piece by piece. Allow the hips to fully open. Reaching up nice and long, overhead. Fingers interlace, palms reach for the ceiling. Stretching up as long and as tall as you can. And arms release down by your side. All right, guys, great work today. Nice job.